Hi folks, today I'm going to be discussing property taxes and if it's legal for public officials to assess property taxes if it happens to be in violation of 31 USC 3124. I've been studying law for some period of time now, and this is an area that I came to some years ago. And I've been trying to get competent responses from public officials, but I don't seem to get many responses, if at all, competent responses. Just to be clear up front, this is not about challenging authority or trying to get away with not paying property taxes. How I see this has a much larger purpose for the actual monetary system and all of our participation in it, and much to our detriment, which I happen to believe will be coming sooner than later. The other issue I'd like to bring up is, it's not a legal disclaimer, but obviously anything I say you should study yourself and see if it resonates with you and how that works out for you. This is just what I've done and where I am at in this process. So how I want to begin this is, I wrote I applied for a petition this year recently to the Valuation Adjustment Board here in the county of Broward, which is located in the state of Florida. And this is the third time I've been doing this process or similar. Last year and the year before I had tried to do this in the private, but basically, as I said, I've either ignored or I received a really incompetent response. Because I truly suspect they know what they're doing is not legally allowed. But anyway, we're going to find out definitely, and how I'd like to proceed with this today is go exactly what I did, and I'm going to be reading what I wrote, so I'm sure you'll be patient with me, because I want to make sure that people listen and understand what I've written, because it's very important to understand where I'm coming from in this process. So what I had to do is fill out a form, and again, this is, I don't know what all states are, but this is specifically for in Florida. So I had to fill out a form referred to as Petition to the Value Adjustment Board Request for Hearing. And in Florida, the form number is DR 486. And what this form requires is a name, what you're challenging, and obviously a signature. So I had put a name in, and I put the parcel ID number, and the reason for the petition, I put it, one of the options was real property value, and next to it I put footnote A as an apple. On the next page, it says you have to sign this part for authorizing written. I declare that I am, and they have the word owner of the property described in this petition, and that I have read this petition and the facts stated in it are true. Well, and you do this under penalties of perjury. Forgive me, I'm using a magnifying glass, but some of the print is small. So what I redid was it says under penalties of perjury, I declare that I am mere user of the property described in this petition, and I have read this petition and the facts stated in it are true. And then when I crossed out owner and put mere user, I put footnote B. I signed it by the name, the person's name that I use, and the title of that how I'm consigned for it is authorized signature. So this is what I sent to the Value Adjustment Board. It was delivered September 19th. I put, Dear Value Adjustment Board, first, please know that I come to you in peace and in support of the United States. My purpose in this petition is to seek out the truth. As authorized by law, I believe this board has the power to accept, count, or reject this petition toward this endeavor of truth-seeking. So I just want to stop a second and tell you why I put that phrase in, I come to you in peace and in support of the United States. The purpose of this is, currently the system is under, I guess, a partial martial law as part of a declared national state of emergency, which goes back to the 1930s and FDR. I want these people to know it's not that I want to attack or bring harm to the United States. I'm really doing this to help the United States, and I'll get into that a little bit more. So continuing, second, on footnote A, as an apple, for clarification, this petition has to do with the use of fair market value based in U.S. currency and or U.S. dollars in order to compute a tax. I fully acknowledge, accept, and agree to the fact that Lori, and that's Lori Parrish, the property appraiser in the county of Broward, has the legal and constitutional authority to assess for property taxes. Continuing. Third, footnote B, as in boy, for clarification, it is my understanding the U.S. Congress, under H.R. for House Resolution 1491 in the 1930s, along with Presidential Proclamation 2039 and 2040, evidences that there is a declared national state of emergency that still exists to date. Furthermore, based on those public records, as stated in Senate Doc number 43, page 9, second paragraph, April 1933, and this is a direct quote, the ultimate ownership of all property is in the state. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of government, i.e. law, amounting to mere user, and use must be in accordance with law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. And of course, what I did was I underlined and bolded mere user, and the use must be in accordance with law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. Continuing. So based upon the above, it would seem logical by statute that all property within the United States vests under its jurisdiction and therefore subject to said jurisdiction. It would appear to conclude then to be illogical and evidenced in law that no person owns property, as all property is owned by the state. And from a common sense, non-legal point of view, if one could own property as owner, it would be to the exclusion of others, as no one else could claim it, lien it, or confiscate such property under any circumstances, unless the owner would provide his free will with full understanding and consent to sell, relinquish, or gift such property he owns to another. In other words, it would not be tacit or presumed consent as applied under what appears the current practice of law. This appears to be the case within the jurisdiction of the United States under a declared national state of emergency. By necessity, this is the current system. All property is subject to statutory law, and such failure to comply with such administrative statutory law, the potential result can be a minor administrative penalty to more severe penalties such as confiscation of property, as determined by authorized public officials. This subject matter is beyond the scope of this board and is only brought to its attention as a point to be made on and for record. Therefore, legally and logically, it would seem that the condo property, and I stated the number in question, similar to all property under this general issue, is owned by the state, and at best, persons would be the authorized and exclusive user of said individual properties, subject to state rules. It is my understanding that a person's name, too, is considered property by the state, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and its subsidiaries, state of XX. I have found no statutes, law, regulation, code, or case law that states that a person's name can be used as personal identification to identify a living being, man, woman. As a matter of fact, it appears by such legally false claim to a name or property of the state, thus begins a presumptive belligerent claim where authorized public officials are entitled under the 14th Amendment to a bounty or prize. Again, this information goes beyond the scope of this petition. It is information to be placed on the record as future reference. Continuing, fourth, please see the attached authenticated birth certificate for Anthony Rubio, Exhibit A. And what it is I had the birth certificate that was sent to me for my authorized exclusive use authenticated. And what I mean by that is you receive a copy of what you presume to be your birth certificate, which it's not. A name or birth certificate, instrument, or a record, they send you a copy. The state of XX, whichever state you were born in, sends you a certified copy where the state holds original title to that name or property. And I had actually called Vital Statistics up on this, and once I got a semi-answer, it came out that yes, the name or the original birth certificate is property of the state, in this case of New York. So what you do is you get the birth certificate, then you go back to the Secretary of State, and they authenticate that the birth certificate, who signed it, and in this case it was Guy Warner, which I don't even think that's his correct name, but that's just an opinion at the moment. The head of Vital Records is entitled to the full faith and credit of the state as part of his authorized duties within the state, in this case of New York. And then what you do is they clip that on the birth certificate, they mail that back to you, and then what you want to do is you want to go up to John Kerry, who happens to be the Secretary of State now at the U.S. level, the federal level, and John Kerry signs off that the state of New York is entitled to the full faith and credit of the United States. And you can find that issue about full faith and credit in the U.S. Constitution. I think it's towards the end of it. I don't remember what section it's in. But anyway, and I'm going to continue reading. So I put the authenticated birth certificate as Exhibit A, and continuing reading. This provides you evidence that Anthony Rubio is a factitious state-created entity where such authorized public officials, in this case Director of Vital Statistics, is authorized to produce and provide to me exclusively a certified copy or receipt. I have been specifically told that I cannot have the original instrument or birth record. Where another state official act entitling full faith and credit of the issuing official performing such official acts, where further yet the United States authorized official entitles the state of New York to provide the full faith and credit of the United States, where such official act is authorized by the United States. From the best of my knowledge, Anthony Rubio is a transmitting utility I use to interface within the jurisdiction of the United States, ultimately always for the benefit of the United States, where all transactions done by and through such property or name benefits the belligerent occupant principal the United States under a declared national state of emergency by necessity. See your 12 USC 95A as ratified under 12 USC 95B. By all accounts, I have been left spoliated or spoliated by naked to the principal, which in essence just what that means is my natural rights have been confiscated. And again, I'm not angry over this. There's nothing to be mad about. I've come to peace with this because it is what it is. I'm not looking to fight with anybody, public officials. I love everybody. But there's a little bit of a problem, which I'm going to get into later, what that problem is. So as I'm reading, let me reread that sentence going back a bit. From the best of my understanding, Anthony Rubeo is a transmitting utility, meaning a legal fiction, that I use to interface within the jurisdiction of the United States. Ultimately, always for the benefit of the United States, where all transactions done by and through such property or name benefits the belligerent occupant principal, the United States, under a declared national state of emergency by necessity. See your 12 USC 95A as ratified under 12 USC 95B. By all accounts, I have been left spoliated or naked to the principal, the United States, as usufructuary. And I want to spell that because I don't know where everybody is with that and the word it comes from. Usufructuary, USUFRUCTUARY. And that comes under, that's from the word usufruct. And I highly recommend you look up that word usufruct because that's the key to what the entire situation is. It's under international law, it's under US case law, it's under many references that have much to do with our condition here, but as I said, the state or public officials do not follow the law. So let me reread that. I have been left spoliated or naked to the principal of the United States as usufructuary under the rule of usufruct. There are multiple references in many foundation documents from the Libra Code, Law of Nations, and Hague Convention, as well as case law that substantiates the legal protocol. Fifth, it is my understanding that this tribunal referred to as Value Adjustment Board operates under Admiralty Maritime Venue jurisdiction vis-a-vis the Uniform Commercial Code. Each board member is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, its laws, treaties, case law, etc. by contract, by and through an oath of office, and each person is bonded within his or her official capacity while performing such authorized duties. Sixth, please note, I do not speak or understand legalese. I have not been trained or schooled in your law, nor am I aware of any contractual obligation that I have entered into knowingly, voluntarily, or intentionally to subject me to any contractual liability within the jurisdiction of the United States. If such a contract exists and the Value Adjustment Board has knowledge of any contract, please send me a copy. Otherwise, no contract does exist other than the terms outlined within this specific petition correspondence. Please also note, I am not a proficient writer. I am doing my best to make sure that you all understand this dialogue, since it is impossible to determine what the individual board members know or not know with regard to the current system. Believe me, it was shocking to discover that what we believe to be our names legally is in fact considered a registered organization under UCC 9-102 definitions. Fortunately, some very well-trained attorneys in UCC 9 helped me learn this. Since the state holds original title, instrument, document, birth record, it would seem the state is thus the legal owner of such individual, estate, person, etc., as only certified copies are specifically provided to the intended user. Sixth,